Well, good morning and welcome to Full Potential Fridays. My name is Heidi Dening, and for the next 10 minutes, we are going to share with you a shot of inspiration and practical strategies to empower you and your team. I'm here with my very smart and talented co-host, Nina Mapson Bone. Nina, what are we focusing on this morning?
Good morning, Heidi. I'm so excited to be here. Today, we are talking about how to attract and retain potential team members, or as we like to call it in the recruitment industry, when every candidate is a purple squirrel, because no such thing exists, right? It's really this idea about finding the right person is one of the biggest challenges we're seeing. And yet actually in terms of creating great teams, it's one of the most important things that you can do. And it really is the thing that can help your team reach its full potential. So Heidi, have you seen some of those challenges in the organizations you work with?
Absolutely, Nina. I think we can all agree getting the right person is absolutely crucial for an organisation. But not only does that have an impact on what they're being brought in to do for their specific role, but there's this ripple effect that impacts everybody in the team right across the organisation if you don't get the right person. Jim Collins has this wonderful book, Good to Great, and he talks about getting the right bum on the right seat. And I think that's what we're really talking about today, Nina. I'd love to hear from our audience if they've ever turned up to start a role and have known immediately that they are not in the right place. If we could have some comments about that, that would be terrific. But Nina, what's the first tip that you're going to give us? Because this is obviously a real area of your expertise.
Yeah, it is. And I love that you've asked the audience that, because I've certainly had that experience in the past, Heidi, but I won't go into that now. But I think the first tip I would share with people is that it's really important to actually identify the real issues. Most people, when they're trying to hire, particularly if they can't find a person, they make the assumption that it's because the candidates are not of a high enough quality, or maybe there aren't enough candidates. They keep losing they want to somebody else. But actually, they haven't taken the time just to stop and reflect and think, what is actually causing the problem? And it might be that issue with candidates is a big challenge, but it might not be that at all, or that might not be your biggest challenge to solve. So it's really important first to take a moment to look internally and see if there are things internally that might be holding you back. And sometimes there are things that really need improving that are going to make a difference to whether you're appealing to people or not. Things like salary, like culture, like the leadership skill, the professional development, the organizational capability, the career path, location, flexibility. There's all of these things that can make a really big difference as to whether you're appealing to people or not. And some of those things you can change quickly. Some take longer to change. But at least if you know what you're dealing with, you can then kind of adapt your process to try and attract it properly. I'd love to hear from you, Heidi. And again, from our audience, our listeners, if you've got any comments in this, is there ever been a reason you've not applied for a role or not pursued a role because of one of those aspects?
Well, I think I'm one of those people who are very hard to please, because I would want all of those things ticked. Is that allowed? I'm not sure. But I think for me personally, I hate staying stagnant. I'm always looking for ways that I can grow and develop. So, for me to understand that there is a pathway, that I'm going to be part of something that allows my skills to continue to improve, that I'm going to get experiences that actually push me a little bit, that put me out of my comfort zone so I can continue to learn and be better because of that. And I'd love to know from our audience which of those kind of aspects of a role is the most important one for them to be able to put their hand up for a job and say, yeah, I really want it because I know that organisation is going to tick that box for me. But Nina, back the question that's just come to my head is that if all those things are okay internally, if we do have them all ticked off, what then is the external things? What else do we need to look for when we're doing this process?
Yeah, and I'm going to answer your question, but I just want to pick up on a point you made first there, which was about this. You want all of those things. One of the things that we see a lot, we've done a lot of work, as you know, on meaningful work and defining meaningful work. And we understand that work is meaningful for different people in different ways. And so, yes, all of those aspects are important, but which ones are more important to the types of people you're trying to attract is the piece that's key. So once you've got that right, yes, then you look at the kind of what's your process and how can you improve your hiring process. And I guess this is my second point, is that when we train, we actually run training sessions on this for our clients. We run half-day and full-day training sessions. And one of the pieces of feedback we get is that people are always blown away. They have no idea actually how nuanced and complex doing recruitment well is. It's often something that kind of people do as a bit of a sidebar to their day jobs. They've not necessarily had training in, or they haven't had it for a while. And there's actually 8 specific areas that you need to look at. And clearly in a 10-minute Full Potential Friday, we don't have time to go into all of those 8 areas. But what I would say is have a think about your process and have a think about, just pick 1 or 2 that you know could be improved and really look at that. So it might be, for example, your internal alignment. Is everybody internally actually on the same page about what you're looking for? Because sometimes you find that what Bob wants and what Catherine wants are not the same thing. And until you're actually on the same page about what the external person looks like, you're going to struggle to find them. Have you actually looked at your sourcing strategies? Are you aware of some of the new ways in which you can source, some of the new areas, some of the new technologies you can use to source candidates? Or are you actually even looking in the right place? What about how you write adverts? When did you last do any kind of training on writing adverts? The style of writing adverts has changed dramatically with the advent of mobile technologies. And if you're still writing adverts from a style 10, 15 years ago, that's not going to appeal to people. Things like your actual process itself. How seamless is your process? How smooth is it? Because that's going to make a difference to how positive the candidate feels. And I could go on, as I say, there are many of these areas, but actually take a bit of time to review your internal process and think about what's working, what's not working. I love Lauren's comment there, making decisions, giving feedback early. That's a big one we talk about, is the communication with candidates. That's one of those 8 things, is how well you're communicating with people. So there's a lot more nuance and structure to it. And I guess, Heidi, I'd love to know, and I'd love to know this from our audience, because this always creates quite a lot of amusement. What's your worst experience as a candidate when you were searching for a job, Heidi? And I'd love to hear some of the stories in the audience in there. What are the mistakes you've been exposed to, Heidi?
Well, yes, I have one that I really like to share. I just wanted to point out, I love Mandy's comment here. She's seen other people start roles when she may feel that she's more suited for it. So that's a really hard thing to deal with when you think you are more suited, and because you don't understand what's going on in the background. And how Danielle said role composition is key, the development opportunities and the flexibility. It's absolutely perfect. But to answer your question, Nina, I sold a business in 2015 that I'd had for 17 years. And when you own a business, you have to wear all the hats. You have to do everything. And I truly thought I could do anything. I wanted to go into an organization who aligned to my values. And I felt that I would be able to be taught anything to do the role. But organizations actually didn't feel that way. The feedback I got was that I was punching way above my weight and I should stick to what I know. And it was a very good piece of advice, though, to make sure that what I'm applying for is somehow linked to what I've actually done. And even though, as a small business owner of 17 years, I had to do all the marketing and I, outsource some, but really I was doing it. I felt I could go into a marketing role. But of course, organizations thought, no, you haven't come from a marketing background at all, so you are not right for this role. So that was probably my worst experience, feeling really that my skills were undervalued, despite me thinking that I could bring a lot of value.
And imagine, that's crazy, right? Imagine missing out on someone as good as you because you're not willing to think outside of the box, which is one of the things we talk about, is thinking outside of the box. And I saw Lauren had made a comment there on the chat about bringing your dog in, which was a way to think outside of the box from an EVP. It really is, how do you actually do that? And that's a great example that takes us into the final point, which is the single best way to improve your hiring and retention of good staff is to reduce the amount of time you have to do it by looking after your existing team members. If you can actually look after existing team members, you're not going to have to do it that much. So listen to them, induct them well, try and help them. If they've got ideas, try and implement them. If you can't, take the time to explain why. Find out what motivates them, work with their strengths, engage them, and get them to be part of the organisation, because it really is the key thing that makes a difference. And Heidi, you must see this with the work you do. The professional development people put into their staff makes a big impact. Is that your experience?
Oh, without a doubt. And, you know, what you don't want is for your most talented people to start thinking that the grass is greener somewhere else. You know, do what it takes to keep your most talented people. I mean, to me, that changes everything. And we know that the Work Institute actually did a recent survey, and they found that a third of the people who leave their jobs was because of unsupportive management and a lack of development opportunities. And I think, you know, Nina, for that alone was one of the reasons that we've come together to create this full potential program, this training and development program, because for leaders and their teams to reach their full potential, there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle, right? And, you know, when you and I can bring these two things together, that's when we know that we can really serve organizations to help them weave their way through what is a very tricky thing to be able to attract, of course, but really retain the best people. Would you agree?
Yeah, quite right. And it really is, in summary, it's about getting and then keeping the right people is one of the best ways to kind of create that full potential, both for an individual and for a team. So really putting the time to be proactive. You know, I think that it's just put the time in to be proactive so that you can see the improvement in that area. So over to you, Heidi, to close us off for today.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And thank you for all the amazing comments. We've got lots of people obviously very interested in this topic. But we will be back in a few weeks. We're coming back after Easter for our next topic, which is called Stress and Stillness Equals Team Performance. So we'd love to see you there. In the meantime, if you would like to see if your team is reaching their full potential, we have a very quick, free online scorecard that you can do or have a look at the full suite of training and development programs that Nina and I are offering to organizations, bringing together our combined skills so we can help you to get your team to reach their full potential. But that's all for now, Nina. Have a wonderful afternoon.
You too, Heidi. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.